Okay, today we're going to start on the top of Kufya Gimel, which is 113. Are you looking for your own Gemara?
No. I just said 1 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
113,
I forget whose this was. Someone brought this. Oh yeah, this is Josh. Okay. So yesterday we had a Gemara where Rav Mari Barachel, who was Shmuel's grandson, salted or had kosher meat that was salted with non-kosher meat. He comes in front of Rava and he says, "Is my kosher meat okay because it was salted together with non-kosher meat? So the blood I know goes out, but what about the taste of the non-kosher meat? Is that going to get absorbed in my kosher meat?" So Rabbi tells him hatmeim that the tzir, which is the juice that comes out of the non-kosher meat, is forbidden. The extra hay of hatmeim includes other things. Okay. Gemara says, "B'lei malei midashmuel."
Excuse me, where's the extra hay?
Ha-tameim.
Am I looking at the wrong place?
No, if you look down on the second to bottom line, it says ha-tameim.
Right.
It's talking about the non-kosher creatures. You see ha-tameim, amalei, ha-tameim. Second to the bottom, the hay of ha-tameim, the introduction, the definite article, the of.
Oh, your Gemara has two hays?
No, just one hay. But it could have said Tmeim Yelachem or Tmeim Lachem. It's impure. Ha-Tmeim Lachem, that is impure, is extra. So the Gemara asks, why didn't Rava respond and say the halacha that Shmuel said? Dama Shmuel Maliach Harei Kurteach V'Kav Shirek Mavashal. Just simply, that look, it was hot. Hot because of the salt. And the hot salt, the salt that creates this heat, is going to make it awesome. So the Gemara responds. I'm going to go back and discuss an issue that I'm avoiding. The Gemara says, "Imid the Shmuel." If it would have just told me Shmuel, Hava, then I would have thought Hanimili Daman, that's only for blood. Is aser. Aval tzirin v'reitvan, but when it comes to the tzir, and which is the gravy and the reitiv, and the two types of gravy, one comes from cooking and one comes from salting. So I would have said that that's not prohibited. So Kamashma comes to tell me that it is. Okay. Now, the Gemara has a bit of an issue because. What was Rav Mari Barachel's question? That you have treif? What was his question? Is his question, is it treif, the gravy that comes out, or is his question, does it become forbidden? Does his kosher meat become forbidden? So Rava responds, it's treif. So the Gemara says, well, why doesn't Rava respond that it gets absorbed into the meat? And the Gemara answers, well, we still need to know that it's treif. So it was sort of like why are you asking if it's that what I need, Maliach Harei Kuroteach?
Why would it be forbidden if it's not treif?
Oh, so one second, let me do that again. His question was, does his kosher meat become not kosher because of the non-kosher meat that's getting salted together with it? That's his question.
But didn't we already learn that the meat is being salted? It's boleia.
It's pilot.
It's
spitting out.
It's not boleia.
It's not boleia. So Rashi actually uses that to say that that's his question. He says, I know that the blood is being pilot and not being boleia, but what about the tzir? Will it be by leyatzir? And that's Rami Barachel's question. Will it absorb tzir?
Can you say that it's slant and it's all falling away?
Yeah, in this case was that it was on top of it. So we know that the blood is not going to get absorbed because it's this bottom piece of meat is spitting out the blood, but will it absorb the tzir? So Rabbi says, oh, the tzir is aser. That wasn't his question if the tzir is aser. His question was if it's going to get absorbed. And then the Gemara says, well, why doesn't he tell him that it's going to get absorbed because of Maliach Harei Ku'ateyach, that it's hot, it's going to get absorbed. He says, well, he still has to tell me that it's aser. But it's sort of like his question wasn't really addressed. But okay. The Mefarshim explained that maybe when he says that the tzir is aser, the tzir only comes from salting. So the fact that the Torah tells me from Hatameim that the tzir is aser, that tells me that tzir could get absorbed somehow. Somehow this tells me that tzir could get absorbed even while it's being salted. So in other words, according to Rashi, when you're salting meat, the blood is coming out of the piece of meat and no other blood is getting absorbed inside. However, the tzir could get absorbed inside. That's what he's saying. Okay. The Gemara now has a question. According to this, that the tzir could get absorbed inside. Now we're going to have some questions. Tzir is the gravy. Is there a better word for tzir?
Juice.
No? The juice.
That comes out.
Okay.
The liquid.
Why is there an inherent koach in the tzir? That's
No,
not in the blood?
it's not an inherent koach. It's the opposite. It's more loose, and therefore it's more thin, and it's able to get absorbed than the blood, which is more viscous, which is not gonna.
So it's like it would be marinating in it.
Right. It's like that. Meisvei, the Gemara has a question. Quotes a Brisa. Brisa says that Dagtar Shamalchu im Dagtame. It's mutter. If you salt a kosher fish with a non-kosher fish, it's permissible. That's very interesting. It sounds like it doesn't absorb the juice, as well as the blood. You know that the blood doesn't get absorbed while you're. So I did the liflei leibala is one of the reasons. But what about the juice? It sounds like the juice doesn't get absorbed. My lav is it not sheishnei maluchim. Both of them are salted. One's kosher. Two pieces of fish together. One's salted and one isn't. One's kosher. One's not kosher. It sounds like they're both salted, and the kosher one is absorbing the juice from the non-kosher
You
one.
can use juice, but not blood. Blood from fish is not treated like blood from animals.
So we're saying that it's permissible, but why is it permissible? It should be, according to Rava, absorbing the juices of the non-kosher one, because we said before that the blood it doesn't absorb, but Rava says juices of a non-kosher one it does absorb. The Gemara says, "Loi, that's not the case." We're actually talking about the kosher one was salted and the non-kosher one wasn't salted. It's a very, we'd say, a cheap answer. It's like it's just not. We just read it differently, and then we have no question at all. What was our question was that 1 second the juices should get absorbed. We said, well, when we said that it was salted, we're not talking about the non-kosher one being salted. We're talking about the kosher one being salted. So therefore, there's no juices from the non-kosher one.
But Nessa, that is an answer because if the case would be that there was kosher and non-kosher being salted,
Then it would be non-kosher, right? And so it is an answer. It is an answer. But me diktani seifa. The Gemara has a question now. The seifa of this brisa says, we edited a drop on the side. Tar maliach v'tamitafel mutter. That if the kosher one is salted and the non-kosher one is not salted, tafel means bland. The kosher one, okay, and it says over there mutter. The seifa. So the seifa spells out what we read it in, how we read it into the Reisha. that implies Michlal, the Reisha has to be a different case, because you're not going to spell out what you just implied. So the Reisha must have been where they are both salted, and nevertheless, it's mutter. Nevertheless, it's mutter. Even when it's both salted, it's a kasha and rava. Mazel tov.
Thank you.
What's the name? Didn't hear the
No,
name.
we'll find out.
Oh, you find that.
Go figure.
We're talking about that they're both salted. The Gemara answers that's not a problem. Why? Because Perushika Mefarish. The Gemara does this sometimes. This is a typical answer that the Gemara could do. Is that when it wants to say that you can't translate a Bais in a certain way, because a minute later the Bais spells that out, therefore we don't want to be redundant, right? So we'll have to say that the first case is talking about some sort of chiddush, to make it not redundant. The Gemara says that no, actually, we don't need a chiddush in the first case, and the fact that the second case is spelling out exactly the same thing that the first case is saying is just explaining the first case. The first case was vague, so we repeat it in an explanatory way.
Just skip the first and go to the second.
Yeah. So what the answer to that is that the Brises were memorized. So it could be that this was a traditional halacha that was passed down and it was vague. We never really take away. We're only going to add, and that must be the answer. So tar, and now we explain. Tar shemalchim dagtami, it's mutter. A kosher fish that's salted with a non-kosher fish is permissible. No, notice that it doesn't say which one is salted, or if they're both salted. No, it's clear that the kosher one is salted. Tar shemalchim, the kosher one is salted. Doesn't tell us if the non-kosher one is salted.
It says kosher fish that's salted with a non-kosher fish. That could mean they're both salted together.
Could mean, but it could also mean that the kosher fish is salted with a non-kosher fish that's not salted. So, Keitzad, how is this case? Shahiyatar maliach v'tami tafel, that the kosher one is salted and the non-kosher one is bland. The Gemara now goes on and it adds another point to prove this, but the second point is going to get rejected. This new point is going to get. It says Hachinam Mistabra. It's also logical that you should have to say that it's explaining why. The Isal Kedaitach, because if it would enter your mind that the Reisha is Shneim Maluchim, that the first case both are salted, both the kosher and the non-kosher. And what's the halacha? That the kosher one you can then eat. The non-kosher one is salted, and we say that the kosher one isn't absorbing the juices from the non-kosher one. It's a big chiddush. So hashta shnei maluchim shari. Now that we've just said such a big chiddush that the kosher one doesn't absorb, doesn't become non-kosher. So tar maliach v'tar mitafel mibai. Does it then have to go on and say that if the kosher one is salted and the non-kosher one is not salted, that it's kosher? You just said it's kosher even if the non-kosher one is salted. It's still kosher. If the non-kosher one is salted, then the juices are going out into the kosher one. That's the problem. And nevertheless, we said that it's okay because it's not absorbing those juices because it's spitting out its own juices. So the Gemara says, "Imishum ha la area." If that's going to be your proof, then very nice. Let's get something. We have another Gemara.
There you go. I have one.
Okay, so if your whole proof is that because it wouldn't need to say a lesser chiddush, and so therefore we have to just be repeating ourselves. So Tanaseif, that's not a problem. Imshum halayirya, that's not a good proof. Tanaseif leglirish, it could be that it's repeating it it's saying it in the Sefer just to tell me what the Reisha means. The Loi Tema, we shouldn't say Reisha Tar Maliach V'Tami Tafel. We shouldn't say that the first case is talking about Tar Maliach, that the kosher one is salted, but the non-kosher one is bland. Aval Shnei Maluchim is Aser. However, Shnei Maluchim would also be Aser. So Tana Seifa, the Seifa tells me that Tar Maliach V'Tami Tafel, that the end one, that the kosher one is salted, but the non-kosher one is bland. Mechlal implies the reisha shnei maluchim, that the reisha is both salted. And nevertheless, it's still permissible. So, in other words, what we've been trying to avoid is saying that both salted is permissible. We didn't want to say that because that would be a question on Rava. We said that if you salt kosher and non-kosher together, the kosher one becomes not kosher. Now we have a brisa that says you salted a kosher one with a non-kosher one, and they're both kosher. It's a kasha and rava. So we said, well, only the kosher one was salted, the non-kosher one wasn't salted. So, and then we tried to prove it. We said, because if they're both salted, so why would it have to then repeat and say that the kosher one's salted and the non-kosher one is unsalted and it's kosher? Why would there's no chiddush in that? Even if it was salted, we said no. Actually, there still is. It could be that the Reisha is talking about they're both salted. So why does the second case say that there's only one salted and it's kosher? We said, well, the Seifa is explaining what the Reisha is saying. That from the fact that the Seifa says Tar Maliach V'Tami Tafel, that tells me that the Reisha was a different case. Okay. So we don't actually have a kasha on Rava. We just don't have a proof to the answer. Tashma miseifa de seifa. Come and listen from the very end of the brisa. Avalim hayatar maliach v'tar tafel. Exactly the opposite. The kosher one is bland. The non-kosher one is salted. This sounds like a very big problem. Aser. That's forbidden. So tami maliach v'tar tafel huda aser. Why is it aser? Because the non-kosher one is salted. But shneim maluchim. Let's say they were both salted. Shari. Then it should be permissible. Why? Because it's not going to absorb. It's a kasha on Rava. Rava says that it does absorb even while it's being salted. The Gemara explains, I did the Tani Reisha, Tar Maliach, V'Tami Tafel. Tananami Seifa, Tar Maliach, V'Tar Tafel. Don't deduce anything from the Seifa. The Seifa is just copying the layout of the Reisha. The end case is copying the layout of the first case. But you can't prove anything from the wording because it's just continuing the way it was set up in the Reisha. Okay. Tosfos points out here that we don't say ilah in tata gavar by salting. We only say ilah gavar, tata gavar. I'm sorry, let me translate. The Gemara has a discussion if I have two pieces of meat, one is hot on top of the other one. If the top one is hot, it's machlekes Rav and Shmuel. If I say that the heat will heat up the one that's lower or not. So one says ilah gavar, one says tata gavar. Tata means the bottom, ilah means the top. One says, oh, the bottom one is going to heat up the top one.
This is one of the exceptions
And
of Rav and Shmuel.
why is it exception?
We pass the other way on this.
Oh, we passed it. Okay.
It's in Brooklyn.
Uh-huh. So by Malicha we don't say that. We don't say Tata Gavar. Why? Doesn't have to do with the heat rising the same way. It's not the same sort of heat. But Tosfos then adds to this. He says that from this you can be lenient, that you don't have to kasher the molds that are made for non-kosher cheese, because the cheese was salted, but the molds don't get salted because of the because of the cheese that's being salted. He says, and therefore, Meisim B'chol Yom Tosfos says that if you have salt that's put in a fleshik dish, you're allowed to use that salt for kosher, for milchik food. We don't say that the fleshik dish just got salted and took out the flavor. He says, "V'machmer tavla bracha." If you want to be strict about that, then you get a blessing. Okay, now we have Siman Bisr de Marach Nafkusa. This is 3 statements that we're going to hear from Shmuel, and there's other things in the middle, but the Shmuel is going to say 3 things now. First thing is, Amar Shmuel, Eina basar yotzei midei damai, that the basar, the meat, doesn't give out its blood, Elam kein malcha yafa yafa, unless it's salted very well, umadicha yafa yafa, and it's washed very well. So, it sounds like you have to wash it afterwards. Itmar. There's a statement, Rav Huna Amar Moilech Umaydiach. Rav Huna says that you have to salt and then you wash it. B'masnisa Tana, in the Bais it was taught, Meidiach Umayleach Umaydiach. That you wash it, you salt it, and you wash it. The Gemara says V'leik, but they're actually not arguing. Ha Dechale Beitabche. This one, where Rav Huna was, where it was washed in the butcher shop. And here, in the Bais, it wasn't washed in the butcher shop, so it needs to be washed once before the salting. Yeah.
You don't soak it.
You don't have to soak it. Do we do 1 second? Do we do a soaking before the before the malicha? Do we soak it or just wash it? Just wash it, and afterwards you soak it for a half hour. What was the?
Well, the least amount is 18 minutes.
Of the salting itself. Yeah, but what about the washing? How long do you let it, how long do you soak it afterwards?
Half an hour.
It says preferable to soak the meat for half an hour.
Afterwards. Okay. So, regarding the washing, the rinsing beforehand, there were 6 opinions in the Shulchan Aruch that were quoted by the commentaries in the Shulchan Aruch of why it's necessary to wash off the meat before you salt it. Because really you can just take salt and throw it on it. So why do you have to wash it off? So those that learn Malicha, the one that tests likes to ask, what are the 6? What are the 6 reasons? That's a there's the opinion of the Ra'ah that says that on top of the meat there's a blood that's considered dam be'en. Dam be'en means like visible blood, and that blood, after all the salting is done, is going to get reabsorbed into the meat because of the salt. So salt will have 2 functions now. It functions one as to get rid of the blood, and it will also function as like what Shmuel says, that it's hot, and it will cause the dam be'en to get reabsorbed. The Ran says that could be dried blood on the top, that the salt won't work, and you need to soften off the top of the meat by washing it first to allow the salt to be effective. The Mordechai says that if it's going to be dirty, then you're going to put the salt on it, then it's going to the salt is going to get filled with the dirty blood that's on the top. It's not going to function to get the juices out of the meat. The Yeshaim Rimshem B'Mordechai says somehow that the salt will soften the actual flesh itself. Then there's the Hagoyis Maimoni in the name of the Smak. He says that even while you're salting it, the dam be'en, that visible blood, could get absorbed. So in other words, the salt could function 2 things simultaneously. That it extracts the blood that's in the meat, but it could cause the dam be'en, which has a different halachic status, the visible blood, to get reabsorbed, to get absorbed into it. And the Rush says that all of the halachas that we said about while you're salting it doesn't absorb, I did the Torah lifted leibola, is only going to take effect if the salting is functioning very well, if it's really spitting out the extracting the blood quickly. But if you don't wash it off, then for whatever reason that we mentioned, it's not going to function as well, then the other halachas are going to come into play where while you're salting two pieces of meat together, the blood from the other meat is going to get absorbed into this meat because it's not pushing it out fast enough because it wasn't softened or because it's dirty or whatever the reason is. Okay. Rav Dimi min Ardai malach le b'milcha gal nisa. Rav Dimi from Nardai, he salted the meat with rock salt. Now, it's not so clear. According to Rashi, it's rock salt just means thick salt. However, rock salt could also mean that it was possibly that it means from a mine salt. It's unclear. We don't in halacha it doesn't make a difference between if it's from a mine or from real salt or sea salt. It doesn't matter. And then he would just shake it off. Now, he says that Rashi says that you would have to shake off only if it's rock salt, but if it's very thin salt, like the table salts, so then you don't even have to shake it off. It's going to get dissolved naturally, and it's just going to flow away. That's what Rashi says. Abu Melech Daka, Rashi says it's not a problem. Amar Mesharsha, ein machzikin dam b'bnei me'ayim. Mesharsha says you don't have to assume that there's blood in the inner parts of the animal. Tirgama, and this was translated as akarkashta umeaya v'hadara dekanta, on the rectum, the intestines, and hadara dekanta is the spinal colon. Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says this is the second piece of Shmuel is saying. The first piece was called Bisra. The next piece is called Manach. Okay. Ein manichem basar meliach el al gabi kelim menukim. You can only put salted meat on top of a vessel that has holes in it that it could drain. Rav Sheshes malach le garma. Rav Sheshes salted each piece individually. He didn't salt them together. Trey my time aloi. Why did he not salt both together? Mishum de parish mehayu balahai. Because the blood is going to exit from one and it's going to enter into the other one. The Gemara asks, 1 second. Chad nami parish mehai gisa balahai gisa. How do you even salt one? It's going to exit from the top of one and it's going to go into the other side of it. You can't even salt one piece together, one piece alone, right? If you're worried about two, so what do you do? You have a piece of meat, so it's a nice fat piece of meat. It's if you cut it in half, now I have two pieces of meat. So a minute ago I could have salted it together. Now according to Rav Sheshes I can't salt it because I cut it into two. It was the same thing before. So it must be that if he's concerned about it going from one to the other, the same would be from in itself. Rather, there's really no problem with salting many pieces of meat together. And what I saw in the shlachta is that they have on these conveyor belts where it goes, they dip it into they position the water in certain ways that as these chickens or pieces of meat are coming, it goes through water. It gets rinsed over here, and then it dips into the salt, or someone is there putting the salt on, and then it just travels around this thing for. Did they do 45 minutes or an hour? No, it says they do it for an hour. It travels around this thing for an hour, and then afterwards it dips it into the tubs for as it's going around the.
I suppose it's going around, it's dipping into the salt.
Yeah, they have these electronic conveyor belt. Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's in part of it.
Okay.
So after the cutting, it's all automated.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, they have people there that are watching. Someone I remember
Except for the salting.
was by the salting, and someone is checking that Suma Sagidin that we spoke about on the leg of the chicken.
No, that's before.
So, okay.
They're checking the chicken for trephus beforehand.
Before the salting.
Before the USDA. You have to.
Uh-huh.
Because the USDA, if they see the leg and they don't like it, they cut it off and then you can never check it.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So where do they stand?
They stand about maybe 12 feet in front of the mashgichim who are checking the animals for the stomach, for the legs.
Uh-huh. This is right after the shechita.
Right after the shechita, it's hanging. going through the feather machine, cutting off the feet, cutting off the head, and then opening it up, pulling the guts out, and then you're able to check the intestines and the stomach and the animal after.
Do they check the intestines of every chicken?
You try to. You have to, because you have like about 5 mashgichim. At the speed it's going through, they try to figure out each one. I mean, you're pulling it down. USD would get upset because a lot of times when you pull it down, the whole thing would just plop as you're checking it.
Okay, interesting. Amar Shmuel, this is our third halacha from Shmuel. Shmuel says, Mishum Reb Chia, Hashever Mefarekas Shel Behema. If the neck of the animal is broken, Kodim Shetetzi Nach, before it dies.
You have 3 minutes left if you want to eat or drink anything before the fast.
So,
3-minute bell.
so if you break the neck of the animal before it dies, it means after the shechita. After the shechita. Harizah machberes habasar. You make the meat heavier. The goizel es abrius, and you're stealing from the people that are coming to buy. Because what would happen is, when by the shechita the blood is spurting out. Now, if you then cause trauma to the animal, so it loses that pulse, that to have the blood come out, and the blood gets absorbed into the animal. So then that would make the meat heavier.
Doesn't the salt take it out anyhow?
Oh, so 1 second. The first thing is that it makes the meat heavier, and then when you're going to sell it, the guy thinks he's buying meat. Really, it's so saturated with this.
People sell the meal before it's salted?
In olden days, that's how it was. You brought it home and salted it.
So that's why it was heavier.
So it's heavier. So v'goizel es abrius mavli adam beivarim, and it says that you cause the. You wanted a coffee? And it causes the blood to get absorbed in the limbs. Ibailu. They have a question.
It's still kosher.
No, that's a question. Heichi kamar. What does he mean to say? Machber es habasar v'goizel es abrius mishum demavli adam beivarim. Is he stealing because the blood gets absorbed into the limbs? Halodidei shaper dami. But if he himself is going to eat it, he's not selling it. There's no problem there. Oidil malodidei nami aser, or is it not kosher? Because the blood is going to get absorbed in the limbs, and even the salting won't be able to get it out. It's too much blood in the limbs. And so it's unclear, Shmuel's statement. We know that it's stealing, but the question is it a problem of salting? Because now